While we waited, a woman was locked down with her abuser.
While we waited, a girl was forced out of school.
While we waited, a mother fed her children, not herself.
In the year the world stopped,
Women's rights were reversed, undoing years of progress. Just like that.
As the world begins to turn again,
we must begin to act.
For the 1 in 3 women who have experienced violence in their lifetime.
For the 47 million more women being pushed into extreme poverty because of the pandemic.
For the 50% of the population
who deserve 50% of the power.
This year, leaders and changemakers will meet at the Generation Equality Forum.
A forum to build up and strengthen women's rights for generations to come.
Let's show that we're standing up
so equality can step forward.
And in a year where it's virtually impossible to meet, we'll meet virtually.
Don't wait. It's time to act for equal.
Hi, a warm welcome to you all to this regional dialogue on the Action Coalition of Technology and Innovation for Gender Equality. My name is Shannon Kalyanamit. I'm CEO of 5G Catalyst Technologies. I am honored to be the moderator for this dialogue today. The video you just saw provides an excellent introduction to the framework for the dialogue today, which aims to start as a conversation starter on the proposed areas of action under this Global Action Coalition on Technology and Innovation for Gender Equality. As we prepare for our comeback after the pandemic and to get to the goals that we want to achieve in the next 5 years. This exciting dialogue is organized by the UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific as part of the Global Generation Equality Campaign, which kickstarted in March in Mexico City, as well as will happen in June 2020 this year in Paris, bringing together leaders from governments, civil society, the private sector, philanthropic organizations, and the UN, who will be making commitments and action aimed at accelerating action on equality, leadership, and opportunity for women and girls worldwide. This regional dialogue, which has been co-organized with UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, and the International Telecommunications Union, ITU, who are both leaders in this action coalition, and has brought together a wide range of partners and leaders and stakeholders who are committed to realizing technology and innovation as an integral part of advancing gender equality. Today, we have the opportunity to hear from an exceptional group of leaders from diverse sectors who are engaged in diverse efforts with remarkable speakers, representing different sectors, interests, and all parts of the world. These leaders will share about their efforts, their challenges, their key priorities, and opportunities for collaboration to accelerate action in this region. This will allow us to gain insight on what's happening in the region, what's happening in the world, and how we, everyone here, can participate. We're certain that when you come into the dialogue, inspired by the experiences and knowledge shared today, that we will come together to build on our work together. We'll spend the next 2 hours learning more about this agenda of this action coalition and the opportunities for everyone's engagement. We will begin the opening remarks from Mohamed Nasri, who I will introduce shortly. We will also be followed by a short panel discussion, which will set the context and the scene for this dialogue today. Following this, we'll have an opportunity to hear from the Action Coalition leaders, UNICEF and ITU, to provide an overview of the 4 ambitious areas of action in areas of technology and innovation. This, as you know, will leverage the SDG framework, contributing to the targets while enhancing the resources that have been mobilized to achieve them. These actions will reflect the need to forge an intersectional approach from all areas and all sectors of all of us that address the needs of women and girls in all their diversity. Following this, we'll shift gears and we'll all here break out into 4 rooms. This will have an opportunity to listen to leaders from diverse sectors who will share on actions that they are taking, but also this is the part where you guys all can contribute and please engage, please make this part interactive and listen to opportunities or share opportunities of how you would like to collaborate in each of these 4 sections. Opportunities will have an opportunity to take a deep dive into these 4 areas. And again, through different experts from government, civil society, private sectors, international financial institutions, the UN, and the foundations on what we can do. Then right after the breakout session, we will come back into the plenary and we will have an opportunity to hear about how we can take action and opportunities for engagement. Before I begin, we hope you will leave this dialogue inspired and energized to continue our work in advancing gender equality in the areas of STEM, or now STEAM, and leveraging technology and innovation in this regard. Okay, so that's the context of today. Before we begin, I'd like to address a few housekeeping rules since we have a large group. So all the attendees will be on mute, except for the designated speakers at that time. Please disable your cameras if you because this will help save bandwidth and ensure a smooth webinar experience. We're also eager to engage with you and my colleague Laris from Sidekick here, who will be your online moderator. We would like to encourage you to please use the Q&A function for any questions and chat for any comments. Most of these comments will be reflected in the breakout room. We aim to address these questions throughout the program, but mostly there. The closed captions have been enabled for those who would like to prefer subtitles for this event as well. You may be able to enable them into your Zoom settings at the bottom of the screen. We're also providing simultaneous international sign language interpretation and interpretation to Chinese, Bahasa, and Hindi. That's enough for the housekeeping, and we're about to kick it off. Now, if I could request one time right now, we're going to turn on everybody's videos so we could take one picture collectively since we're all here. And then right after that, we will start this forum. Could you turn on all of your cameras first, and we'll just take a quick picture. All right, okay, thank you. So with this, it's my pleasure to introduce our co-host, beginning with Mohammed, Regional Director of UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Mohammed, I now invite you to the floor for your opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Shannon. It's always wonderful to be in the same event like you, and I promise you not all our events are technologically challenged. Last time we also had some issues with the audio, but that was a real live event, and you managed it very capably. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of us.
先生们，大家早上好，下午好。
And thank you for making the time for this important convening.
抽出这个时间。
I am Mohammed Nasseri. As Shannon has said, I'm the Regional Director for UN Women in Asia and the Pacific. And I really have the pleasure of welcoming all of you to this virtual event, which is the first in a series of events that we will be doing around generation equality. This one today is on technology and innovation. I wish to begin by recognizing the challenges that we've seen in this region, especially in South Asia, with the significant increase in the number of individuals and families affected by COVID. Our thoughts and prayers are with all of you who are going through this now. We are therefore deeply appreciative of today's speakers and participants for making time for this event. It's a virtual convening that is part of a series of dialogues which aim to bring the Generation Equality Forum to Asia and the Pacific. As some of you know, the Generation Equality Forum kicked off in Mexico City last March and will culminate in Paris with an event that will be presided upon by President Macron from the 30th of June to the 2nd of July. This forum, which has been convened by UN Women together with the governments of France and Mexico, aims to spur financial and policy commitments for gender equality, fuel a diverse and powerful coalition for gender equality and intergenerational movement of people and organizations, and drive widespread public attention and mobilization around the theme of gender equality. It really aims to fuel a significant and lasting coalition for gender equality. More than 80 member states, private sector organizations, and international civil society, youth-led organizations have been actively engaged in shaping the forum's call to action by leading action coalitions on themes ranging from economic justice to strengthening feminist movement to leadership. And today we're speaking about the advancement of technology and innovation. This number is expected to expand significantly as the coalitions recruit new commitment makers in the run-up to the forum. This enduring multi-sector movement for action and accountability on gender equality will be a lasting legacy of the forum. I wish at this moment to make a special mention of UN Women's co-conveners for today's dialogue, our partners in crime, the United Nations Children's Fund and the International Telecommunication Union. Together with a range of stakeholders across diverse sectors, UNICEF and the ITU are leading on this action coalition on technology and innovation. The importance of this action coalition cannot be overstated, especially in the context of COVID, which exposed the digital divide and in particular, the gender digital divide in all its complexity and further reinforced inequalities between men and all the other genders, including women and girls, and the exacerbated effects of the pandemic for marginalized groups and communities. About 433 million women in low and middle income countries remain unconnected digitally. More than half of these women reside in South Asia. Additionally, women across low and middle income countries are still 8% less likely than men to own a mobile phone and 20% less likely to use the internet on a mobile. This means that in these markets, 300 million fewer women than men use mobile internet. Yet, a recent survey from the 51 most online populated countries showed that nearly 40% of women surveyed had been harassed online. The vast majority, 85%, had witnessed harassment or some other form of online violence. These challenges have been fueled by the lack of safe, gender-responsive, and inclusive learning spaces, by the lack of diversity among the creators of technology, and entrenched gender biases in the workplace, and limited interest in investing in feminist technology and innovation, and weak accountability mechanisms more broadly. Changing this will require stronger commitment and investment in collective action. In this region, to remove barriers associated with traditional social norms, lack of education, costs, trust, safety concerns, or geography, among many others. During this convening, we hope to learn more about the key priorities which represent a blueprint for action for the next 5 years through the interventions of an inspiring group of speakers, all trailblazers in their areas of work. Through this multi-stakeholder dialogue, we hope to bring the global discussion down to the regional level and adapt it to our context. Thank you for joining us today, and I really hope that this will be an engaging, interactive, meaningful discussion for all of us. Thank you again, and back to you, Shannon.
Thank you, Mohammed, for giving us some context on the overall purpose of Generation Equality Forum and setting the role and giving us the examples of all the different challenges we have. So this is a problem for all of us, not just women and girls, but men and women all over. So next item on the agenda, we have an interview panel with Ms. Anantya van Broekhorst, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of ThinkWeb Digital and Technology Agency based in Indonesia, and Ms. Afka Shart, Senior Vice President of Global Government Affairs, Huawei Technologies, and based in China. Okay, so we have one question each, and if we have time, we have a third question. So Ms. Anantya,
yes.
Could you briefly share about your work in your organization, what you've been doing with Think Women, what concerns have driven your efforts, what lessons have you learned, and what issues do you consider to be key challenges to addressing the existing gender digital divide in this region?
Okay, thank you, Shannon, and thank you for the opportunity as well. So I would like to also share the Indonesian example. I will start by recognizing that actually the digital accessibility has grown significantly in Indonesia. More than 70% of Indonesians have now access in digital. So this is partly driven by affordable Android smartphones, accessible data fee, and also the push of the pandemic as well within the last 1.5 years. This has changed a lot of aspects in our lives. Like, for example, moms are now pushed to get acquaintance with technology, whether they like it or not, because their children are now studying at home virtually. And we see also like more couple are starting home businesses, becoming couplepreneurs, the terms, and uses technology a lot to push their businesses. And to recognize this, I will share 2 points, like the ability to take opportunity and also the growing support of ecosystem. So for me personally, the technology that has empowered me to do a lot of things in my life, like I established my company by learning from search engine, like I search how to make a business proposal and financial forecast, and then take a lot of like online classes. And after 4 years, I actually started to take opportunity to make Girls in Tech Indonesia back in 2011. To connect, inspire, and also empower more women to work within tech industry. And in 2018, I started Think Woman, supporting women through entrepreneurship. With both of the experience, I learned that there's a lot of women that actually bring their friends, and also moms that bringing their daughters to the events. So I really see that here, women also plays a very important role in inspiring one another and also making changes in lives. Like I want to also share a story. This is a story about ability to take opportunity as well. Like one day I met, in 2017, late 2017, I met Michelle. She was 15 years old at that time. So Michelle joined one of the Girls in Tech workshop together with her mom. Her mom is actually the one that dragging her to the events. She loved the activities and end up at the end of the activities asking me to like, can I intern at Girls in Tech, or can I intern in ThinkWeb, my company? So she end up, Michelle is the one in the middle with the black shirt, and she end up interning for 3 weeks at ThinkWeb. And she loved it so much, learning about digital campaign. And what I heard in 2018, early 2018, she actually made her own digital campaign called Self-Love Warrior. And her campaign right now still going on up until today with 40,000 followers, making a lot of content, campaign, and things like that. So what we see here is that this is just an example of like inspiration, opportunity, and also technology can even help a teenager to innovate and speak about her cause. Aside from opportunity, I would also to acknowledge the importance of support ecosystem. So when I run Think Woman program, our primary target is actually young moms, age 25 and above. So almost all of them need to ask permission from their spouses first. They always told us that. And several of them also ask whether they can bring children to the workshop. So this is what our workshops look like. So this is like a lot of like baby strollers and also toddlers roaming around the workshop, but it was fun, and the woman felt like more confidence while doing that. So we see that the support of the spouses and immediate families, be it the parents and also the children, is one of the more important things. In Indonesia, we have a movement called Laki-Laki Baru, or New Males. This is just an example of a male involvement towards gender equality in Indonesia, both in, we can see the next slide, both in the home and work environment. So Laki-Laki Baru have created several content that pushes towards like spouses can also contribute within the household as well. So they work with several partners. One of them is a private sectors, a brand. They built Academy Suami Sejati, or True Husband Academy. They showcase how to share equal workload between husband and wife, starting from the kitchen. And I would also like to see the ecosystem about the supportive community. So in Indonesia, we have more and more programs towards women that caters different age group. So for example, we have the next slide is about Generation Women. So Generation Women support the idea of supporting future female leaders through STEM or STEAM. And they have these amazing summer programs, workshop geared towards teenagers and also university students. And we also have Girls in Tech and Society of Women Engineers next. This basically community is empowering first jobber and the woman that already already on the like industry or already on the tech industry. And the last one, we have a Stellar Woman. This is geared towards entrepreneurship, and they work together with a lot of like different partners, private sectors, to become a speaker or funding the program. And the last one is the example of Think Woman. This is my program. We work together with private sectors as well. And also we work with government to become like a speakers and also supporting the cause as well. So there's two more things about the digital ecosystem or the ecosystem is the startup. We see that a lot of like digital startups are now plays an important role as well in support of the digital economy. For example, Gojek, which is connecting customer, business owners, and also delivery system. So this a funny story is even one of my employees, she was working from home and starting her own business selling traditional drink. She uses Gojek, and at one point, her income from her business equals with the income with salary that I get her. She decided to quit last month, pursuing her business, and also she wanted to start studying in master degree. So that was the changes that happening. And also like the micro financial startup, we see a great potential here because they are able to support the unbankable woman. And the last one, the important one as well is the support from government, like both regulatory and also a broader impact program. Like we see the pro-woman regulatory. Indonesia right now, a huge talk about like legalize the elimination of sexual violence bill. So a lot of people are pushing that to make women more secure. And the last one is the national program. We see that Indonesia right now have a Pengaruh Utamaan Gender program or like gender mainstreaming program reflected in the yearly state revenue and expenditure budget. So it's a national budget gearing towards women. So the governmental programs is also targeted for women right now. And although we have like seemingly a long way to go, the progress that we have now are important steps, I feel, to determine the next course of action. I think that was the summary of the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shannon.
I'm actually really inspired hearing all the different initiatives that you have, whether it's inspiration, peer support, skill set support, microfinancing. It sounds like there's a lot of activity there. Thank you, Anantaya.
Thank you.
Afka, as Senior Vice President at Huawei Technologies, can you share from the perspective of your company, such a large company, some gains and gaps in order to create an inclusive digital economy that promotes gender equality? Also, we want to hear if there's any emerging opportunities that your company sees in leveraging technology and innovation to meet some of the most pressing needs of women today and girls today. Thank you, Afka.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you all, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to give you a little bit of a hint on what Huawei is doing for this very important topic that we're discussing today, and that is on SDG 5, gender equality. And for me personally, is a topic that I hold very dear. I have moved recently to China, to Shenzhen, and I come from Europe, and it's been a total pleasure, and I'm super surprised and encouraged by all the female leadership that I see here in the region, and how many great female colleagues I have running around at Huawei, and the level of their education is truly amazing. So I see that it's very hopeful signs over here. But being in the tech industry for quite some time, progress has been a bit too slow. I think digital as we have all been living it through during the pandemic, has the ability to change the world and to, make us work from home, take care of our daily duties, but also for our work and how our businesses operate. And this will also bring a lot of career opportunities to girls and women. But I don't think that we're picking the fruits of it to an extent that we would actually need. So, because if we look at the numbers, and I will give you a few stats now. So, in the technologies of the future, like cloud computing, for example, just 12% of the professionals are female. And also, we have seen same numbers in the fields of engineering and big data and AI. So we're definitely not catching up when it comes to female participation in new technologies. So something needs to be done. And also, when you see some numbers about senior management roles held by women worldwide, it seems that we increase that. But if you dig a little bit deeper, you see that most board roles that are held by females are in the space of human resources, but not so much when it comes to IT and information technology. You see that only 16% of the CIOs of big corporates are female. So there's also a lot of work that we need to do in that space. And what we have been focusing on at Huawei is specifically on developers, on coders. We really think that there's a world to win there. And I will just give you one example to illustrate that. So when you saw all those health apps on your phone rising just a few years ago, you actually could notice that a lot of those health apps, they have a lot of health metrics to measure your weight, but also your blood alcohol. But these early stage apps did not have or would measure your menstruation cycles, for example. So it was very male dominated. You could measure the alcohol in your blood, but nothing that would relate to what we experience on a daily basis. So that's just an example how the tech industry has been very male dominated. But you also see some very encouraging signs, because we're all touching our screens, and that was actually invented by a female. And also in our company, the lady that has been working on 5G, and at the start of it, we call her Mrs. 5G, Daisy. She is one of our fantastic role models that we have here. And I think that is needed, because if you would go back to the early start of the tech sector, that is in the 19th century when computers were invented. And then you probably have heard of a name that pops up every time, and that's Ada Lovelace. So she's been the first programmer, the first coder, so to say. And she saw that the computer was just not a machine to calculate numbers, but that it also could be used for human imagination. So she's now seen as the godmother of tech, but at that time she was not taken seriously at all. So, but we do see some encouraging signs. In China, for example, we have noticed that 18% of all programmers in 2020 were female. So that is an increase of 70% when you compare that to 3 years ago in 2018. And we also test, and we've seen some surveys that girls that are born after the year 2000 are more interested in a career as a software engineer than ever before. And that is not only in China, but that is worldwide. And we do believe that government policies play an important role here. So here in China, the government is encouraging women under the age of 38 to start a career in technology with some funding. And you see that with all these government policies, like this example, you notice that women play a bigger role in the tech sector. So, for example, also another stat that I would like to share with you is that 55% of all the startups are now founded by women here in China. So that is quite significant, and it's also, well, a lot higher than in the US, where it's only 22%. So how do we play our part as Huawei? So I know that Jill is also today one of our speakers, but she has been at the Huawei Women Developers Summit that we launched in April, where we want to really focus on getting girls to build and to work on apps. Because we do see that when we create some societal impact with the technology, with the use of apps, that can be can create a lot of independence and can create a lot of female entrepreneurship. So technology should really be a building block for gender equality and to come to a better future for all. And so we would like to play a part in empowering female developers to create apps and products and build just anything that she wants. So we have launched this program, the Huawei Developers Program, but we also have a Seeds for the Future program that we have been working on quite for long. So where we are facilitating and convening 30,000 tech talents from over 500 top universities in 126 countries worldwide since 2008 already. And we pledged in 2018 for this program that at least 1/3 of the participants should be around 30% and or 50%. And we already held that target in quite a few countries, including Saudi Arabia, for example. And we're hoping that those numbers can increase and climb as we go. So another product that I would like to share with you is what we do in the developing world. So maybe you've heard of the M-Pesa platform. That's a mobile banking solution for entrepreneurs in Africa. And we have built this platform actually with our partners Safari and Safaricom and Vodafone. And it's so important to create this financial independence and for entrepreneurs to take track and notice of their money flows. So that is something that we do, but also connectivity. So a mobile phone, like Mohammed already mentioned, is bringing a lot to female empowerment in the region. And so with those products and services, we bring connectivity. So because that's the first thing you need to have, right? So also in remote areas, so not only in the urban environments, but also in the rural areas, we bring connectivity. So even with small populations, for that we have a rural star solution where we bring antennas and coverage really easy and really quickly to those remote areas where we don't have a lot of population. So we did that in Zambia, Thailand, Ghana, Indonesia, Nigeria, Mexico, and so forth. So and with that connectivity, you can gain access to not only small businesses, micro credits, but also smart agriculture, e-government, mobile healthcare, and so on. So we've been engaging in programs for females that they can register their new infants, and in return would get an insurance program for that. So there's a lot of promising signs where we are working together with civil society on bringing progress and to society. So let me end here. I think there's a lot of progress made, but we should definitely not stop while the momentum is growing. And what we need is not only an adjustment in mindset, but real concrete action and stronger support to create an equal environment for tech. And we have to work together. It's not something that governments alone can do. I think investors, individuals, even private sector, we should all come and work together to help bridge the digital divide. And I hope that is of value, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Actually, there's one thing that she said, which was, so Ada Lovelace has been called the world's first computer programmer in 1833, And all of a sudden now in 2021, we have to work back. And why is there still an issue today if we were the first coder? That's something to consider. Now, before we get on to the next part, I want to ask you guys, we have just a little bit of time. Anantaya, could I ask you, and Afka as well?
I think in regards to that, the first thing that are and foremost important is that the support of the family itself. Like, I can be able to make use of the technology because like my parents really support me at that time. Like they said that, hey, go ahead, do whatever you want, go crazy with all that technology. And we also see that the support from the spouses, like I shared earlier, is pretty much important. Like, because within Indonesia, like a lot of like women still ask permission from their husband and wanted to get the support and like the blessing to like do whatever they want. I think that was also the consideration that if we wanted to like move forward, I think all of the party have to like on the same page to support you to go through, I think. Yeah.
Everybody from all aspects, men, women, younger, older, supportive, and that starts with mindset, and that starts with forums here. Yeah. Thank you. And Afka, as well, could I ask you the same thing? Last thoughts that you'd like us to consider as we go into the next session?
Yes, I very much agree with what has been said. I think, indeed, the influence of parents, of your spouses, of your peers, of teachers are very important. So, girls until now have not easily or naturally chosen a technical course. And I think that indeed many parents still prefer to see their girls as teachers or as doctors. So there's still a world to win. And we should not underestimate the role of fathers and of men in this regard. And I think also for us, it's an important factor, how to combine work life with your personal life. So workload is something that we need to consider because, some professions can be temporarily achieved at another level. But if you're in tech, it's hard to sometimes step out for a 3 or 4 months maternity leave, or in China, I think it's even longer. So that's much better. But so for sometimes science projects or tech projects, well, they require continuous commitment. So we really need to work on that from a technology point of view, how we can break that. And I also think, we need to help breaking this image that technology and that coders are nerds, but it is actually quite a fantastic opportunity for growth, and you can be very successful and have a very fantastic career in tech.
Nerds are cool now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you. Age and the context for today. Thank you for your contributions here. So we're about to move into the next segment where we're going to hear about the 4 areas of action that have been identified under the Action Coalition here and the vision for this action. Now we have an upcoming video, so I'll pause right here and we'll get into the UNICEF Girls in Tech video, and then we'll join you shortly.
What was once just a spark is now a flame, a force sweeping the globe. We're the innovators, the artists, the mentors, the scientists. We're standing up and speaking out. In the schools, in the streets, and online. Girls in Tech are cracking the code. We're shattering the ceiling, creating the innovative solutions of tomorrow. To connect, to organize, to be heard, to be the change. With the Girls Empowerment Initiative, we're boosting our digital skills to reach our full potential. We're designing apps to break taboos. We're harnessing AI to end violence. bridging the digital divide. We're lifting each other up and making each other stronger, empowering ourselves and engaging others. There's 600 million adolescent girls in the world. Imagine what we can do with the right technology. These are our tools. This is our time. Join us.
So we've heard about the challenges of actually inspiring and getting women and girls in tech, but there's also so many issues. Once girls are in tech, then what? Are there challenges after that? Let's move to this next session here, where we are unpacking the areas of concern. So we have this section, this segment here. Rory Dempsey, from the project officer from ITU, International Telecommunications Union, Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, as well as Gerda Binder, who is UNICEF's UNICEF Senior Regional Gender Advisor for the East Asia Pacific region. Here, they will both share on the areas of action that have been identified, and I will leave it to you guys. Gerda and Rudy, please take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shannon, and good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to join you today. I am Gerda Binder, the UNICEF Regional Advisor for Gender Equality in East Asia Pacific, and I'm here today with my colleague from ITU, Rory Dempsey, and together we will share an overview of the Action Coalition, the areas of concerns that it is seeking to address, and which strategies and tactics have been identified to tackle them. So if I can ask for the presentation, please, to start. We'll talk you through these areas, and we will also include a few examples of actions that our agencies have committed to within the Action Coalition. So on the next slide, it gives you an overview. It says, what are the Action Coalitions about? Previous speakers have already touched upon them. The Action Coalitions are global, innovative, public-private partnerships formed to drive game-changing results for gender equality. They are about collective actions, and there are 6 different Action Coalitions for selected themes, but today in this webinar, it's all about the Action Coalition on Innovation and Technology. As you can see on the next slide, the Action Coalition for Innovation and Technology is led by a multi-stakeholder leadership council. So the governments of Armenia, Chile, Finland, Rwanda, and Tunisia are working together with ITU and UNICEF and civil society organizations such as Social Builder, Global Fund for Women, and Digital Grassroots, youth-led organizations. And members of the Leadership Council are also the Rockefeller Foundations and private sector companies like Microsoft or Salesforce. And together, over the last year, they have shaped the vision for the Action Coalition and identified 4 key actions to bring about the change. So on the next slides, the vision for this Action Coalition is really for women and girls to have equal opportunity to safely and meaningfully access, use, lead, and design technology and innovation. And to do this with freedom of expression, with joy, and with all their potential. And to achieve this vision, we need a collective effort with all of you. And now over to Rory to unpack some of the areas of concern and share some key data with you.
Thank you, Gerda, for sharing some introductory and overview of the Action Coalition. Hi, everyone. I'm Rory Dempsey, Project Officer of ITU Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. I'm also delighted to be with you today with UNICEF colleagues to continue to present the key data and area concerns. For your information, based on the data collected from ITU's Measuring Digital Development series, over half the total global female population, about 52%, is still not using the internet compared to 42% of all men. Next slide, please. Nowadays, it's over 90% jobs worldwide have a digital component. Without increased digital adoption and use, adolescent growth will have fewer employment opportunity to be competitive in this fourth industrial revolution. Can you imagine that? Thank you. I would like to also move to this slide in sharing with you the figure on the gender gap in mobile ownership South Asia. Although access to mobile technology in South Asia is high, the South Asia region has the world's widest gender divide in terms of mobile phone ownership. Women in South Asia are 26% less likely to own a mobile than men and 70% less likely to use the internet. In this shift to digital platform and services, however, we were painfully reminded that women and girls are vastly underrepresented in the cyberspace and on the internet. Next slide, please. And to accelerate results on technology and innovation for gender equality, there are 4 actions that will explore how technology and innovation can help advance gender equality and create new solutions responding to women and girls' needs in all their diversity. The first action is to bridge the gender gap in digital access and competencies by accelerating a meaningful access to digital technologies. Next slide, please. Today, I would like to also highlight an example through which ITU promotes gender equality and empowerment of women for this digital era. It's Equals. Equals a global partnership of UN agencies, industry, government, research institution, and civil society, all working together to close the gender divide and achieve gender digital equality by 2030. Equals partners are organized into 4 coalitions, reflecting the 4 intervention areas, which are access, skill, leadership, and research. I'll let Gerda to continue the presentation, please.
Thank you, Rory. So the second action is related to feminist technology and innovation, and to support women and girls' leadership as innovators. So we want to give you an example on the next slide for such technology that puts girls' leadership and girl intentional digital design at the center. If we can go to the next slide. Great. So one of these examples is a particular app. It's called Oki, that UNICEF and partners in East Asia worked with girls to break the taboo of menstruation, one of the gender discriminations that is still so entrenched. And together, we co-created a period tracker app for and with girls. Using human-centered design workshops, the girls were the creators and innovators. They determined the solution, the look and feel of the app, and how to build it so that it matches the digital realities. So on the next slide, you can see that the results are beyond expectations. This Oki app is uniquely designed to empower adolescent girls with menstruation education and tracking their period in fun, creative, and positive ways. And it functions online and offline on the devices that girls use. So now Rory will speak to some of the ITU initiatives in this second action area.
Thank you again, Gerda. For your information, in January, ITU launched the Network of Women at the World Telecommunication Development Conference. It is to increase the number of women participating in the ITUD meetings, as well as taking up leadership roles. The Network of Women will be the platform to understand the challenges that women delegates face and explore possible avenues to overcome them, and allow sharing important lessons in a supportive community through mentorship and networking opportunities. Next slide, please. Another main vehicle from ITU to promote women empowerment in digital society is Women in Cyber Mentorship Program. That was also launched at the next of March with the occasion of International Women's Day. The program will feature guided monthly mentorship cycles with supporting activities. It also aims to shift the mentality and tackle systemic barriers, encourage women to take on leadership roles in cybersecurity, and promote knowledge sharing of professional best practices. Now I'd like to Gerda again
Yes, thank you. Action number 3 is about building inclusive and transformative innovation ecosystems. We need better representation, as we just heard before from our speakers, and more participation of women in the technology and innovation industry to make the whole ecosystem more gender responsive. So on the next slide, you can see one of the initiatives that UNICEF is committed to driving with partners to support girls in their pathways to employment, especially in the tech industry. And we need targeted investment for their education, their digital literacy, and 21st century skills to participate in these workforces. So what we're looking at is to leverage innovative finance instruments, such as a digital literacy equity outcome fund, to invest in business models that foster girls' skills and close the gender digital divide. Next slide, please. I'd like to give you another example of advancing access to digital skills, and that is also improving access. So the joint UNICEF and ITU initiative called GIGA leverages private-public partnerships across countries to connect every school to the internet. Let's move on to the fourth and last key action in the Action Coalition. It focuses on preventing and eliminating online and tech-facilitated gender-based violence. And this includes designing tools and laws to better prevent and respond to online violence, but also on the flip side, to use technology itself as a solution to end gender-based violence. I'll give you an example on the slide, thank you, about an initiative to develop virtual safe spaces that are designed with and for girls and women. And there are a lot more ways how tech can prevent gender-based violence, can raise awareness, can support remote response services, as we all know were so important during the COVID pandemic and stay-home measures, or to facilitate access to justice. These are a few examples. A lot more, I hope, will be discussed in the breakout rooms later today. Over to you, Rory, for more examples and to wrap up our presentation.
Thank you, Yoda. And the last example that we would like to share with you is the ITU Child Online Protection Initiative that recently launched 2020 guidelines. It's a comprehensive set of recommendations for children, parents, educators, industry, and policymakers on how to contribute to the development of a safe and empowering online environment for children and young people. Last slide, please. Before we conclude the presentation, we would like to take this opportunity to invite you all to join Action Coalitions and become a commitment maker. You may see more information to be involved in the Action Coalition on your screen. We look forward to working with you all to ensure all the girls and women have equal access to the internet, digital services, applications, skill development, and leadership position in this digital era. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Actually, since you're still here, can I ask you a question on behalf of the audience? If there are some initiatives here that people want to engage in or even sign the commitment pledge, where would they go? Would they go to a website? Would they contact ITU? Would they contact UNICEF or perhaps UN Women?
Yes, maybe. Thank you for that question. And I love that the interest is already there to make commitments to join. There is a website of that UN Women is managing. So maybe calling on colleagues from UN Women to put that link in the chat to make commitments. But at any time, it's now and up to the forum in Paris to connect with us and all the partners in the Leadership Council and see where and how commitments can join together to have that game-changing impact that we're looking for. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you so much, Gerda, and thank you so much, Rory. So at this point, we will be launching the 4 breakout rooms, but right before we do that, and again, those are the 4 action areas that we will be focused on. So thank you so very much for giving us not just highlighting which action points, but also some examples that are currently being done for each of them. Now, before we get into the facilitators and discussions of this next section, what we're going to do now is take a quick poll on the areas of action. What we'd like to do is ask everybody in this room here. So one, if the Sidekick team can launch can launch the poll, and we can ask everybody in this forum here to quickly pick what area here out of the 4 do you consider to be the most urgent, pressing issue for this region. And again, we have it here again. So bridging the gender gap in digital access and competencies. Number 2, invest in feminist technology and innovation. Number 3, build inclusive, transformative, and accountable ecosystems. And 4, something that usually is very taboo, but it's a real issue, but prevent and eliminate online and tech facilitated GBV is gender-based violence and discrimination. Okay, so what does that say? Bridge the gender gap in digital access and competencies is at 30, but prevention and elimination of online tech facility gender-based violence is following up with 28, and then inclusive, transformative innovation ecosystem 22%, and then invest in feminist technology and innovation at 20. So very close to each other. Thank you all for your contribution. So at this point, I'd like to request the team to project the impressive lineup of facilitators and discussions to identify the groups. So we have 4 groups here. I'm going to introduce each facilitator and discussions, panelists, speakers in each one. Okay, and we have Action Room 1, headed by Zara, from the Asia Pacific Regional Lead on Gender and Inclusion Plan International. Well, she'll be leading the room in terms of bridging the gender gap in access and competencies, which most of you reported on just now. And 2 discussions, which would be Ms. Srisi from Sabah, Nepal, and Jill Tang from Ladies Who Tech. So whoever would like to go, please go to that room right now. In terms of breakout room number 2, we have Invest in Feminist Technology and Innovation, Philomena from the Asia Pacific Institute for Broadcasting Development, and Dr. Kalpana, CEO and co-founder of SafetyPin, and Benita, founder of Women in STEAM. So anybody in investing in feminist technology also means money investing and time investing as well. So in technologies that are geared towards women, but also made by women. As well. So please go to Action Room 3, headed by Jake Bell, APAC Partnerships for Code.org. Action Room 3 is build inclusive, transformative, and accountable innovation ecosystems. And discussions here will be Ming Yan, who is the Global Head of International Partnerships at Ant Group. And let me see here, and Aisat Adnan, excuse me if I pronounced it wrong, co-founder of Women in Tech Maldives. So anybody on ecosystems, on how to build inclusive, transformative, accountable, please go into room 3. And lastly, we have Action Room 4, prevention and elimination of online tech facilitated gender-based violence and discrimination. We have facilitator Sonal Kapoor from India and discussions Naigat, who is Executive Director of Digital Rights Foundation, and Soni Yoshi, co-founder of Zonta Club of Kathmandu. So please go to breakout room 4. Now, please, everybody, while you're in your breakout rooms, we would like you to engage, converse, interact, meet people, network as well. But also, if you can talk about 2 or 3 priority actions for that specific topic. So specific actions for that action that you can recommend and suggest. And then right after that, strategies and opportunities on how we can work together more on multi-stakeholder, because we have a ton of different countries here, from Nepal to China to everyone in this group. I saw a lot of Thais and Indonesians as well. So please, if you can be engaging, interact, and then right after that, we will come back here for a quick bit, and then we will have a summary of what your action room has discussed. So I leave you to join your breakout sessions now, and I'll meet you in 40 minutes. So everybody, welcome back from after the breakout session. I hope that was a very engaging and enjoyable discussion. I was able to join one of the discussions and I saw a lot of great information in there. So, and thank you for the video, Celebrating Girls in Tech. So this part right here is a session in the agenda that aims, it's more inspirational and celebration of what's already been done in this field of technology and innovation by women and girls. So first up, I'd like to invite Ms. Feng Chen, who is the head of product of engineering platforms at Gojek, one of the largest super apps in Indonesia, and one of the few women who is part of the executive team in the tech industry. Ms. Chen, there you go. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. Can you all hear me? Awesome, okay. So I wanted to start by asking everyone, can you remember a time when you felt that you didn't belong? All of us have experienced the discomforting situation where we are the odd one out. We can encounter this anywhere, whether in our personal or professional lives. All of us can relate to the feeling of not belonging. Now, in such a situation, when you feel that you don't belong, are you typically performing your best? No, we are humans. We are social creatures. Our natural instincts would be telling us to expend energy into blending in instead of standing out from the crowd, even if standing out meant you'd be taking a risk to deliver an outstanding result. Unfortunately, for women in male-dominated industries, this feeling of not belonging or lack of psychological safety can occur every day when we show up for work. Case in point, I am often asked, what is it like working in tech as a woman? Unfortunately, the presence of this recurring question represents the fact that a woman working in tech is still not yet the norm. However, it is also an important opportunity to share my simple message. Technology is an equalizer. As a subject matter, it is in fact a level playing field. Your gender does not define how much of an expert you can become in this field. Technically, there is nothing in this field that a talented individual is incapable of accomplishing because of their gender. And if I may put it even more bluntly, the device from which you work does not care what gender you are. This is why we have to ensure women have access to equal opportunities in this space, as technology is our ally in our fight for equality. I'm honored to be here today to share my story with you because my career is just one example of this and what is possible when women are given equal opportunities to leverage technology. When I reflect on my career so far, there are two clear enablers that allowed me to get to where I am today. Today, I am the head of product for engineering platforms at Gojek. I lead my amazing teams in the engine room of Gojek, which powers everything from the mobile application layer, our experience, to infrastructure, the bedrock of the Gojek platform. We ensure that as an organization, we keep pushing the envelope of our technology so that we can better serve the needs of the customers that depend on us, as well as the millions of drivers and merchants that earn an income on our platform. Now, I'm going to share a personal story with you. People who work with me today would be shocked to hear about what I was like as a fresh graduate in my first job some 10 years ago. You might be surprised too, having heard me speak for a few minutes already. The truth is, I was incredibly shy. I still remember in my first week at my first job, writing an email in which I needed to make a simple request and feeling so nervous to send it that I reviewed the wording of this 4 to 5 line email with 3 other fellow graduates that had onboarded at the same time as me. That's how shy I was. Tech companies have to recognize that when you are an other in a group, speaking up is a risk. Over the years, I have slowly come out of my shell, transforming into someone who isn't afraid to speak her mind, someone fearlessly excited to contribute and make a difference. What's my secret? Here's the thing. This drive and ambition to contribute was always in me, even from the start. The only difference between me today and that shy young woman is that barriers have been removed. I am here to share my story because I believe that I represent a great number of women whose capacity to make a difference can be unlocked or accelerated if we provide an environment that either removes these barriers or at least empowers women to overcome the barriers that hinder them from realizing their full potential. In my case, the 2 key enablers were, firstly, inclusive company cultures. I am so grateful to have had the privilege of being nurtured by and to get to learn from both male and female leaders who actively created spaces that encouraged members, regardless of seniority or gender, to speak their minds. Especially in my formative years at the beginning of my professional journey when I was finding my feet in the industry. It can be as simple as ensuring that everyone in a meeting has a chance to speak and share their thoughts. Everyone in a meeting should be responsible for providing a safe, supportive place for left field ideas to be thrown around and explored. This is how innovation happens. These leaders understood that hiring the best was just one part of the equation. After these people enter the company, they ensured that these members could thrive. There are many mechanisms and best practices already in place in many organizations to promote inclusivity and ensure equality in the workplace. For example, addressing and monitoring the discrepancy in the gender pay gap, or making a public commitment to diversity, such as the UN Women Indonesia No Manel Panel Pact. Inclusion is an area that we must continue to invest in. And at Gojek, we strive to drive these positive changes and spearhead inclusive practices in the Southeast Asian tech industry. If you are out to hire the best, then you owe it to these members to ensure that they are set up for success in your organization. Otherwise, you are only fulfilling half of the deal and you will lose these members to better organizations. Recruiting is fiercely competitive in dynamic industries like tech. The second enabler is leveraging data to overcome bias. Any minority group, whether it be from gender, ethnicity, or otherwise, will encounter biases that may come in the form of limiting beliefs about capacity or capability. In tech, data is the cure. There is a culture of being data-centric in the majority of tech companies, and this is something that I found extremely effective in overcoming unconscious biases in discussions. At Gojek, we are data obsessed. This means that our debates and the ways we solve problems are focused on unpacking and analyzing the data being presented from multiple perspectives, rather than the conversation being swayed by the authority dynamics in a room. Data is incredibly empowering in this sense, and wielding it has been instrumental in my career because data is knowledge and knowledge is power. Today, we have collectively discussed important actions we must take to bridge the gender equality gap. And while there is a long road ahead, every step counts. It may seem daunting at times. However, if the very devices we've created are capable of treating us all equally, then so can the companies we build. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ms. Feng. Very inspiring. Right now, we will hear, we're at the point where we get to hear the summary points of what was discussed during the breakout sessions. So we have, again, 4 different breakout session leaders. Before we ask the facilitators to turn on their screens and share their group's recommendations, would like to deeply express our deep appreciation to all of you for your contribution and our facilitators and discussions for kickstarting and helping to start the groundwork for all of this discussion. So now I'd like to invite the group's facilitators to present their recommendations in the order that I will provide now. So I will invite the discussions to turn on your cameras as well, so that others who did not participate in their groups can also see your faces and recognize who you are. So at this point, 5 minutes per group. So we have a total of 20 minutes. We will start with group 1. And the facilitator is Zara, who was discussing about bridging gender gap in digital access and competencies. She was joined with Sristi as well as Jill Tang.
Thank you so much. And thanks again to Sristi and Jill for your amazing comments and insights. We have quite a few, so I'm only going to read like the 2 or 3 that are requested, but the rest will hopefully be shared. And I am going to just do executive decision making on which ones I choose, because they really were a lot of amazing insights in this. So some key priorities are that women at all stages of life, including mid-career, including in school age, are underrepresented in STEMs and should be the investments should be made to support them with training, digital literacy, and access to devices and internet and connectivity. Another key thing that came up is it's really a root cause is that gender norms do sit at the base of part of the reason that women have less access or girls are less interested. So that also has to be addressed. There has to be a change in mindset, both among the communities, but also among girls to, one, make STEMs more interesting to them, but also make it more welcoming to them, as it can often be a hostile environment, which then just kind of reinforces the gap and the issue and the reason girls may not be choosing to go into STEMs. And then another real piece that came out was it's not just a gender divide, it's also a rural-urban divide. And that's quite important because we can get a lot more access in the cities, and some of these initiatives can be quite successful, but then we get to the rural area that remain quite isolated and have less access. And this is true across the board, but in the group, it came up really particularly in terms of value chains, in terms of women's entrepreneurship. I would also just add that it comes up in sort of access to online education and devices as well, especially for girls who will often have less access than their brothers or male relatives. So I think those would be the top 3 priorities that we discussed. And then we did discuss some key partnerships. In particular, it's working across multiple sectors. So I think a lot of us are venturing into this, but in terms of digital and access and STEMs, it's particularly important to engage with both policymakers and the private sector. So I guess with three, so civil society, private sector, and policymakers all together, instead of just the one-to-one or bilaterals that we may be doing at the moment. And I know there's new initiatives coming on, but this would bring it all together so that there's policy solutions, investments from corporations and interest, as well as the civil society that can really get to the people that need it the most. I hope that I've captured everything. Well, the top three, we have quite a lot in our document, in our notes document to share. But I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Zara. Next, we have group two. Group two is led by Philomena and also joined by
Dr. Kalpana and Benita.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Please go ahead. Investing in feminist technology and innovation.
Thank you so much, Shannon. And thank you to all of you who joined us in the breakout room 2, where we talked about a very interesting area or action, invest in feminist technology and innovation. So we had two vibrant ladies, and they came out with some pretty interesting recommendations, and also the audience or participants who were in the room were also pretty, what do you call that? We're pretty excited about this, and they gave their comments as well. So I'm looking at some key insights from the breakout room discussion, and we're looking at employment for women in tech, right? And also income inequality, also the element of privacy. I think that became an issue where women, this was brought out by Dr. Kalpana, where privacy is something that we should look at when we're looking at this area, and access and also machine. This is something that she mentioned. So the distinction between women in technology and transformative feminist technology, and looking at technology as an enabler. So how do we make it as an enabler in many areas such as health, safety, work, governance, education, data for good, etc. And then we move on to Benita from Nepal. She brought out some very interesting infographics, especially on women in data. 36.3% of employed women in Nepal have completed their secondary education. And of course, STEAM in Nepal has its own shortcomings, because what is needed is government intervention. Perhaps that is some of the key recommendations that came out from the group, that governments can invest in foundation, introduce STEAM disciplines to primary and secondary educational curriculums, and also capacitate teachers, educators, encourage girls to practice their rights, and role models. Role models were the other factor that came up, because I think for girls, for women to be inspired, they need to know that, wow, this woman is making it, and that she has done it. Like what earlier, I was very inspired by Feng and Gojek, because Gojek is a very popular app that's going on, and we have that in Malaysia as well, right? So we're looking at another key area of recommendation, identifying the consequences of the problem, and role models, like I pointed out, data mentors and women leaders. And and also starting and defining gender roles in curriculum, school curriculum, especially in countries in Asia Pacific. So perhaps policy and laws that will also allow the data space to design technology for women is also one of the things. And letting women know it's fine not to be perfect. And this is something that should be told to young children. I mean, you get kids who are told that you got to be knowing about data, or you got to know about STEM. And many of them are afraid of failing, or will I make it, or can I do this? So this is where you have to let women and young girls in particular know it's okay to not get through everything with flying colors. What's important is that everything in the world right now is something to do with digital inclusion. Digital is everywhere. Technology is the thing forward. So providing more opportunities from stakeholders. I think that's something to make anything work, to ensure that there's employability for women. I think stakeholders, partners, businesses need to know and need to work together with all governments as well as private entities such as where these ladies come from. So I think we had a wonderful discussion, and thank you so much, Shannon. And I'm sure there's a lot to take back from the group later. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed your discussion. I was able to go in and witness that as well.
Right.
So now we'll move on to group 3 to discuss building inclusive, transformative, and accountable innovation systems led by Jake. If you could take the floor.
Of course, thank you so much. I feel very unqualified to summarize the great conversation that we had. I wish you all could have been there and we had more time to spend. We had some great insights shared from our discussants who were Meng Yan from Ant Group and Aisha Fadnan from Women in Tech Maldives, and some really good actionable things. I would say the high level insights that we discussed were taking a holistic approach to the problem. So Meng shared kind of from her experience at Ant Group, they have a program that focuses on digital finance, supporting female entrepreneurs through digital finance, providing them with digital skills, as well as digital development opportunities. And so coming at it from a holistic approach of providing that support to women. The other thing we talked about was initiatives that support kind of the school to work transition for girls, kind of being with them and helping them with that transition, such as career guidance at schools. Aisha talked a lot about, in the Maldives, a lot of times, students and parents aren't aware of all of these careers that are available in tech. And so making initiatives to make them aware, show them role models, things like that. So like mentoring, work experience programs, all of these pieces that come together to support that journey that these girls are on. Another one was, kind of digging into that role modeling aspect and specifically connecting STEM professionals with girls so that they can see people who look like them, who they relate with, who are in these careers, and they can see themselves going into these careers. And then one of the other things we talked about was just the general lack of data. Like if we are going to build and improve these ecosystems, we need data around the participation of women, the inclusion of women, and addressing not only the lack of data, but the bias that is in a lot of the data that is collected. And then as far as the recommendations that we have, I would say the first one, which this seems like it's a common theme across all of the groups, is really focusing on these public-private partnerships. So bringing together education systems, governments, and companies like Ant Group that are working with emerging technologies that are tech companies at their core. And each one can kind of bring their skills and their expertise to address this central problem that we're focused on. The other one is just increasing access to STEM education. So, increasing digital connectivity in schools and at home for girls and young women, making sure that they have the resources and the curriculum available to them to be able to study in STEM fields, and especially focusing on those girls in hard to reach areas that have that limited capacity and provide that support. We talked about, making sure that there are family-friendly policies that make these workplaces more attractive to women, that make them an environment where women feel like they can be successful. And the last area we talked about as far as a suggestion was, providing different kind of scholarships and funding that can be available to draw women into STEM post-secondary. Meng showed some great examples of work that Ant Group is doing in that area. So like I said, a high-level summary, and great to hear the amazing work that's being done around the region.
Thanks so much, Jake. And lastly, we have Sonal from Group 4, who will report back on preventing and eliminating online and tech facilitated gender-based violence and discrimination, who's also joined by her 2 colleagues here. And let me just see, maybe you could introduce them. Sonal, thank you.
Hi. Hi, Shannon. Actually, Sonal is, based in India. She's working with Protsahan, and today she's in the field addressing the issues of orphans from the COVID pandemic that's just having dire consequences there. So I've taken over, and I'd like to present and thank Nagat and Soni Joshi for the work that they were doing in Digital Rights Foundation and the Zonta Club. I will quickly go through some of the insights that the group offered. Excellent dynamic discussion. Just recognizing that COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the importance of connecting to services available and strengthening referral mechanisms, recognizing that online access may actually exacerbate vulnerability to online violence, which disproportionately affects women and girls, and that accountability mechanisms for safety must be strengthened and adapted to the specificities of the region. There's also a recognition that online violence is an extension of offline violence, and that this requires systems strengthening as well as social responses. We talked about engagement of communities in addressing the negative gender norms that other colleagues have also highlighted as an effective prevention strategy. And the fact that with increased participation in public spaces, including with political participation, women and girls may be exposed to cyber violence. And that where there's a lack of trust in reporting systems and legal and justice protection mechanisms, reporting may be muted. So we came up with 5 recommendations, if I can summarize them. One is to have safety protocols in online access and to have that adapted to the language and the platforms that we have in our region. And we had a very interesting example that was provided in Pakistan with the Digital Rights Foundation. Also, with cyber tech laws and enforcement agencies being effective in supporting protection, reporting, and addressing complaints, including with gender responsive mechanisms. This may require training. We talked about some of the training that UNICEF has been able to do to address gender-based violence online and make connections with police. We also talked about investing and addressing the social norms that are really the drivers for this violence, and supporting this through family, through education, and through the community by raising awareness and advocacy, including, as Soni from Zonta highlighted, through the 16 days of activism. That happens in November and December. And we talked about really doing the kinds of systems strengthening by engaging judges and police to facilitate justice, reporting, and enforcement and legal mechanisms. And finally, the importance of networking and collaboration between UN agencies. And in one case, there was an example of partnership with UN agencies and NGOs working together to broker relationships with government and to really work at strengthening collaboration. Also offering opportunities for cross-national partnerships and exchanges like we were able to have in our discussion, in our breakout group. Thank you again to everyone that participated, and back to you, Shannon.
Thanks so much, Maha. Okay, so I would like to thank everybody here and everybody who's on the panels, everybody in the breakout room, everybody who contributed your comments and recommendation. And this will be shared with the Action Coalition leaders and the organizers of this dialogue. So all of your comments and contribution do count to their further action. Ladies and gentlemen, so at this point, we will be coming into the wrap-up session of this forum. We will have two speakers and then close out as well with the UNICEF Regional Office of South Asia. So let's start. Okay, without reminding you why this Action Coalition is important, I think we all know now. In this regard, today we have with us Talitha Amalia, who is a development and education practitioner, who will share briefly about the key takeaways from this dialogue. Thank you, Talitha.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you all today. Despite all the statistics and news we've seen about the problems that women, girls, and other genders are still facing around the world, I'm utterly amazed with all the work that our speakers have done to help reduce the remaining digital gender divide and other gender-related issues. I really enjoyed, myself hopping from one breakout room to another. So thank you so much for sharing your stories. Oftentimes, our problem is that, we don't know what we don't know, let alone the complexity of the problems, right? How much progress that we have collectively made so far. And oftentimes, our guesses are informed by unconscious biases and judgments. So in this opportunity, I am really thankful to participate and to share with you my gratitude to participate in this event and hear various points of view from both speakers and other participants during the breakout sessions and the entire dialogue. There are real concerns that many of us have raised throughout the dialogue. Of course, it is justifiable that we all worry about all the problems in the world, but embracing a worldview based on facts, data, and stories that women, girls, and other genders share with us can help us focus on the things that threaten us the most. I found something interesting today when ITU mentioned that 90% or more jobs have digital component in it. I can't help but think about the discussions in various research studies around the idea that women are known to be more risk-averse and therefore are less likely to explore digital technologies that are unfamiliar to them, including for education and economic purposes. So that makes me think about my girls, to be honest, my students who learn with us at Solve Education informally because they're not at school. They're out of school. As an educator and researcher myself, from my own experience, collecting data on the ground in the field of education as well as women entrepreneurship, many of my interviewees, both women and men from various fields, refer to women as the ones who seem less confident compared to their male counterparts, putting them at a disadvantage when competing in academic or job competitions. Many suggested that this is due to the fact that we, women, have been experiencing various types of violence in many areas of our life. We know that cultural violence represents the existence of prevailing social norms that make direct and structural violence against women and girls and other genders seem natural and acceptable. And because of that, for example, when marginalized girls are out of school, like our students on the ground, it will be harder for them to return to school and get back the education that they deserve, because many parents think that they should prioritize boys to get education first, because the boys will become the breadwinner in the family. Also, the belief that women can be paid lower than men because they are considered to be less capable is still prevalent today. Moreover, gender-based domestic violence is still an issue that most women victims are still reluctant to speak up about in public, despite all the women movements that we are having today. Such deeply rooted violence in combination with women's risk-averse nature creates an unfounded fear of technology in women and girls. This is exacerbated by the fact that without tangible evidence of success, it is unlikely for women and girls to adopt digital technology to help them thrive. With all the information we now know today, what should we do? Of course, there are many things that we can do, and many actionable work plans have been laid out and explained by our speakers today. But I would also like to invite you to, first, read more and more research findings, reports out there to help us more educated about the issues. Second, join or volunteer in organizations that champion gender equality and work with local communities. This is especially important because many gender-related issues are contextualized and cannot be solved by one single proposed solution that is intended as a panacea. Third, increase public awareness and make the gender gap in technology, education, business, and financing more visible. Create more noises. Fourth, encourage non-conventional skills development and address gender stereotypes through training and talks in local languages. Many great talks like this and trainings are available in English. But if we can facilitate that in their native language, it would definitely improve their learning experiences. Once they are comfortable with the idea of the learning itself, then of course we can ease them to learn in today's knowledge language, which is English. Fifth, like the facilitators have mentioned before, I think it is utterly important that we popularize success stories of digitally enabled women and girls. Like I mentioned before, without tangible evidence of success, it is unlikely for women and girls to adopt digital technology to help them thrive. And lastly, as women, let's fix each other's crowns and help each other to become the best version of ourselves. Thank you so much, Shannon. Over to you.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Talitha. Now we'll hear from Kirti Jayakumar, who's the founder of the Gender Security Project, about her key takeaways from today and messages on what she thinks. On to you.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you folks at UN Women for having me here today. We've heard from so many different speakers and participants, and some of the key insights that I want to share are in addition to what's already going on. So I'd like you to just sort of think of this as places to start from or enhance your existing work. Now, the digital world is as much a public space as our offline spaces are. Cyberspace is informed by the same ideas and ideologies that we've normalized and continue to perpetuate offline, which means that things like patriarchy, heteronormativity, casteism, ableism, and classism, among a range of other different behavioral factors, are imported into cyberspace by the very nature of it being a human space. So how can we make technology and innovation work for gender equality? First, it's absolutely important to acknowledge that tech can be as much an enabler as much as it can be the site of harm. Leveraging technology to enhance the proliferation of services, accessibility of educational awareness, and facilitating help-seeking behaviors must sufficiently be preceded by community stakeholding. To give you an example, building an app and leaving it on a Play Store without making it accessible, comprehensible, or empathetic is virtually throwing the baby with the bathwater. Some really great work, but isn't translating into action. Unless we address poverty and classism, the proliferation of technology to the last mile will remain a utopian dream. But we can always find ways to make it accessible, each time progressing one step further. One of the best ways to do this is to work with those who work with the last mile, those that liaise with communities on ground. For instance, equipping collectives and nonprofits with tech-based solutions and educating their beneficiaries on how they can access these solutions through the liaisons. A village-level school, for example, could be equipped with smart devices and a robust internet connection, which can then work with the last mile and successive generations of them to enable access to education or entrepreneurial training. A police station can engage in trust-building measures and train women and non-binary people on accessing a simple piece of technology to raise an alarm or report a crime while still protecting their identities. The second important point is intersectionality is vital in tech. Accessibility remains a major challenge for most people in the world, primarily because of factors such as race, caste, language, religion, nationality and migration status, age, physical and mental ability, and class. And these play major roles in complicating gendered experiences. Now, over the past year, when the entire world went online, or so we called it, several people, especially the younger sections, have been entirely left out of accessing school and university because of their social positionality, which prevented them from accessing devices or even the internet. A young Dalit woman in India died by suicide because she couldn't access school. Now, tech should not become a new arena for us to apply old formulae of structural and cultural violence. Treating technology as an opportunity to start over will help us prioritize the human and the human's rights, rather than merely reiterating systemic and structural violence to entrench barriers where there were none to begin with. Third, building technology with empathy is fundamental to change making through technology. We inhabit all the public spaces we create, so the collective mindsets we bring to the public space become the collective mindsets of that space as well. The same is true for things like artificial intelligence, which now seems to run the world. The tech we order about to do our bidding is evidently female, and I want you to think about Alexa, Cortana, and Siri, for example. We must pause to think about how we import a patriarchal mindset into the dynamics of our approach. It doesn't really take very long to see the discrepancy at play here. The patriarchy has brought a power dynamic into play because we're effectively ordering women, except as technology, to do our bidding. Banks that use artificial intelligence to assign creditworthiness offer scores to loan applicants and forget a very significant element in the entire machine learning process. Historically, patriarchy has enabled more men to access and receive loans than women. A fact that a machine doesn't have the nuance to actually differentiate, which means that it treats gender as a basis to determine creditworthiness and as a basis to reject anybody who isn't a man on paper. Now, automation in hiring processes have also discriminated based on gender. In cyberspace, we may share digital ages with people who may be a whole generation older or younger than us, which means that their mindsets offline, their conditioning offline, come to a place where they share the same digital age with perhaps somebody who's a decade younger. Now, if we reflect on bringing empathy into technology, we're also going to find ways to acknowledge the role of conditioning, to acknowledge the way technology is effectively reiterating and perpetuating patterns that we have normalized, and begin to think about ways to dismantle those patterns. Finally, safety. Safety should underlie every approach to making technology and innovations for gender equality. While we take care not to perpetuate and reiterate stereotypes on the one hand, it's also important that tech itself enhances vulnerability, especially in spaces that are primarily tech-driven. The violence young women and non-binary people face online rests on a spectrum. From apps that assert a particular body image or ideal, to those that outright objectify and sexualize women and girls, to still those that enable trolling and violence and cyber harassment of young women, technology isn't automatically safe. Building robust reporting mechanisms, resources for handling trauma from tech-based engagements, and creating safe but brave spaces online with the help of bystanders who can support women who are facing violence is vital to enable a seamless, safe, and empowering engagement with tech. I'd like to end my share with a question. The dream of a peaceful, feminist space has been long overdue. Why don't we start with tech? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Kirthi. All right, ladies and gentlemen, after all these great perspectives, the wrap up from both Talitha and Kirthi, we hope to encourage you with the supports of the efforts that we've discussed here. You can reach out to the organizers of this event for further information. But before we end this forum today, we'd like to hear from, we now have the opportunity to hear from George Larrier-Adjei. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but the Regional Director of UNICEF Regional Office for South Asia, who will give the closing remarks. There you are. Hi, George, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I've been hiding here and listening to the very wonderful presentations. So colleagues, I'm very happy to be here with you this morning. I know we've all come from various organizations, from the UN, from ITU, from government, from NGOs, and from the private sector. It's indeed a privilege to join hands with you this morning as you deliberate on this very important agenda. We have heard from partners and colleagues who are driving very important innovation and investment in technology for girls and in their inspiration journeys. I would like to start by thanking you for your dedication to this cause and for sharing your inspirational work. The Generation Equality Forum, as you all know, puts together what I'll call a culmination of Beijing plus 25 review processes and the Action Coalition, which has created an opportunity for us to share best practices and to learn from each other. There is indeed a large innovation and technology gap in women and girls' digital adoption and use compared to men and boys. As we've heard today, girls and women are least likely to have access to technology. This is a fact, and this is a trend that has persisted for a long while. There's already various types of disadvantage that girls and women experience in society, and many of you have talked about it. But we see this in their day-to-day lives, and especially as they deal with the constraints of the ongoing pandemic. The lack of connectivity has taken dire implications for girls' education, for women's livelihoods, and families' well-being. And we must all do what we have in our power to reverse this trend. Lockdown restrictions like those we're experiencing throughout South Asia and around the region have left millions of girls, women, and more vulnerable to violence at home as well as online. I'm speaking from Kathmandu now, and I'm sure you're all following the news about what is happening in India, in Nepal, and increasingly in Sri Lanka, and in other parts of South Asia. A huge wave of COVID-19, which is having an equal impact on men and women and girls and boys. And technology, opportunity to have access to technology makes a difference in such a situation. COVID as an emergency has shown us the strength and importance of institutions like schools for learning, for mental health and protection. But we've heard today that there's indeed innovative ways to support girls and young women with continued learning and development of what we call 21st century skills. And these can really help them transition into meaningful employment and decent work. So we have to come together to really work hard to break the gender digital divide, because it is not just a matter of today. The impact is not just what we see today. The impact is that we are going to see widening inequality gaps in the near future and in decades to come. Gender gaps in skills can have significant consequences for women and girls' participation in the digital economy. We've heard again today that over 90% of jobs worldwide already have a digital component in one way or the other. And most jobs will soon require refined digital skills. Again, listening in, there's a lot of discussion about the gender gap in mobile internet use in especially low and middle income countries. And we all acknowledge that the gap is huge. The gap is still widest in South Asia. And allow me to talk about South Asia because it is a region where I work with partners to reduce this gap. The gap again is still widest in South Asia at 51%. So colleagues, there's a lot of work to do. We see how the digital divide, the gender digital gap is intersecting with other inequalities. Of course, gender is our focus, but of course also with age, with socioeconomic status or disability. It is ending up creating groups of exclusion. It is ending, and if we don't move fast, it's going to perpetuate some of the permanent traps that societies have in our region. But we've heard inspiring stories and valuable lessons today as well on what works for women and girls. And I feel very encouraged by some of the stories that I've heard, some of the personal stories, and some of the activities of organizations to help reduce this gap. And for me, it is very encouraging and very inspiring. We must all work together to address the lack of opportunity when it comes to technology. We are making a mark, and we had some of them, overcoming challenges and growing businesses beyond what we all imagined, including in communities that we consider marginal. We need to ensure a new generation of female scientists. We need to bring our efforts together to ensure that we have a new generation of female political leaders who can help societies make the right choices. CEOs, NGO leaders, including those who lead in engineering, in ICT, and so on. For UNICEF, we have made a bold digital commitment, and that includes connecting every school and helping to provide, working with ITU and others, working to provide 3.5 billion children and their families with access to world-class online learning solutions, and to child online protection, and to the highest data safety and privacy standards. So we are committed to going the journey with many of you. We know that female workers make up only a fraction of all workers involved in AI, artificial intelligence, in data analytics, and so on. But coming together, we can improve this, and we ought to improve this as a way of bridging other gaps that girls and women face. So coming together and mobilizing around generation equality to imagine solutions is a top priority for us. Platforms like this amplify girls and women's voices and the innovations and solutions that they bring. So please let us all design innovative finance instruments to engage partners for closing the gaps that we are all talking about. Right from schooling through transition to work and in employment. We need to place digital literacy for girls as one of our topmost priorities. We need to place connectivity for girls and women as a key priority. And again, we need to distinguish the peculiar constraints that girls and women face and target our resources, interventions, and all our efforts to help address this. So colleagues, let us all raise our voices to encourage investment in girls' designed learning solutions fit for the digital realities and for the diversity of women and girls. And finally, let us continue to forward the advance of technology as a solution to end gender-based violence. I'm sure it's very important to many of you, and technology can help us address that. We all need to work together and inspire and support girls and continue investing and expanding in this area. So I thank you very much. And from UNICEF, I look forward to joining hands with many of you to make concrete investments in this area. Back to you, moderator, and colleagues. Please stay well and stay healthy in this time of COVID. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, George, for having that wrap up for us here. So closing this, I'd like to thank you everyone for your excellent contributions to this event. I especially want to thank you, UN Women, ITU, and UNICEF for preparing the framework that we have. And I mean, like, equality is such a big issue, but breaking it down to the 4 framework of an action plan that we all should be focused on. I mean, I know myself growing up from Silicon Valley, I was terrified of being in tech. Had I had forums like this, listening to the inspirational stories and all the facts and figures that are out there, it would have been a different place 20 years ago. But yeah, everything from bridging the gender gap all the way to gender-based violence. Thank you for your comments and action plan for this one. Now, before we move to the last bit, I just wanted to leave with you. For me, I like to do action. What else can we do after this? One, all your comments here will be forwarded to UN Women, which will be gathered by the Action Coalition leaders. But also, if you have time, please go into the Forum Generation Equality Coalition Commitment Makers application. I don't know if you can see these, but basically what you can do is you could go in here and then you could name your organization, government, and where you're from, and then basically what type of stakeholder you are, and which theme of interest that you'd be interested in participating as well. So you could actually take action here. Whether you have, today we just saw so many initiatives. So whether you'd like to join someone's initiative, whether you have your own initiative, please do that. So then all of this can actually go into action plan as well. The other thing that I'd like to take away here and maybe leave for everybody else is I am very happy. I've been to so many thousand forums where we're talking about equality. Equality here is made for everyone, which includes different races, different ages, different social economy, non-binary, LGBTQ as well. Going through this panel today, I saw a few men, but what we do is, and again, one of the things I always see is sometimes when women are just talking amongst women, no real change gets to happen. So after this forum, if you can, talk to somebody at a different age group, talk to somebody who's a male, maybe share some of your learnings, and maybe next time bring that person involved and get them involved as well, because we need, it's everybody's problem. And if we can get more male, more participation, more diversity into these kind of forums, that would be amazing. And lastly, just would like to thank everybody again. Thank you so much. I had a pleasure moderating today, and we will close with the Generation Equality video. And I think Hulda said that there will be compilations for the deliberations and a bunch of info that would be circulated to everybody. If Hulda and team, if you could just tell people where to find all this information. There's a lot of decks that are being shared and links in the chat group. If you'd like to find more information, it's all in there. And I am signing off. Thank you and goodbye.
What defines a generation?
Climate justice! Right now!
Is it just about the year you were born? Or is there something more? We may have lived through different decades, different circumstances, different countries, but we all share in the global, everyday push for our rights, for justice, for a world that is equal. Perhaps what defines our generation isn't our age or our background, but the line in the sand that we have drawn. We take to the streets to speak out against discrimination, and we work tirelessly behind the scenes. We stand up for peace.
We are fed up with the war
and economic justice. We start with a statement and watch it become a movement. We have come a long way, but the fight isn't over, and our rights are still under assault. It is time to take action, Let us be the wake-up call the world needs.
The eyes of all future generations are upon you.
Be the first, the youngest, the best, and then make sure no one is left behind. When someone tries to silence you, raise up your voice.
Let us wage a global struggle.
Change everything, or change just one thing. As long as you do something, whether you're new to changing the world or have been in the fight for a long time.
Each knows exactly why we are here.
We are all together, united for gender equality. And the future we create for women and girls is up to all of us.